Welcome to the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in critical times. Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
Poll after poll, the Nanos poll, so many others, see that gap narrowing. And a couple of them actually have the Conservatives ahead by a point or two in these popular polls. And I think that probably signifies some of the frustrations voters are feeling. But to your point, when they say, okay, question two, who do you want to lead the country? Carney still beating Poilievre by over 20 points. So they say, we're not crazy about what the way things are going, but sure as hell don't give the reins to that guy. How do you reconcile those two differences?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's there, right? It's black and white, which is why when the earlier number that you threw out with 78% of Canadian Conservatives say they want an election, why? Because if it happens after the budget, you don't have enough time to get rid of Poilievre and replace him with somebody else. Like that leadership review is not scheduled till January. He'll win that because he's smart and shrewd and organized enough to make sure the right people are in the room at the right time.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is the kind of unity behind him in the conservative movement right now than there was a year ago. And I understand why, right? The big question is, can you win? And it's not clear that he can. And this is not the first time in the long time that I have been devoting all of my time studying politics. This is not the first time I've seen a big gap in terms of where the parties are sitting and where the leaders are sitting. And in my experience, the number that matters is the leaders, especially when you're going to go into an election. It's the party brand is not going to be enough to hoist up a leader who is behind by 20 points. Like, unless a whole hell of a lot changed over the campaign, I would think it's a major risk for the Conservatives to go into an election with Poilievre sitting where he is right now.
Well, and there's the poll that was out about, I guess it was the middle of the summertime. They basically said, I think it was about 60 or 70% of the Canadians said they'd be embarrassed if Pierre Poilievre was our prime minister.
Yeah,
that's pretty strong language.
Yeah,
pretty strong language. Are the Conservatives paying attention to that, or are they simply dismiss? Publicly, they're saying, "Oh, no big deal." Yeah, but is there some concern in the caucus and in the ivory towers of the Conservative big thinkers now that we've got a leadership problem here?
Like that's what I have heard, is that there is, especially after, again, these comments about the RCMP and Justin Trudeau, it seems like there has been a palpable line that's been crossed here in terms of, oh my God, what is this guy going to say? And does he really mean this? And I think the kind of post-mortem analysis on that interview that he did, where he made those comments, is that he wasn't led to that. Like this was not, he ended up being caught in the conversation where he ended up kind of saying this, and maybe he regrets it. He was relaxed and seemed to be in his full self when he made these comments with no discomfort whatsoever. And I think there are, like, in that caucus, and I think what really matters here in terms of the future of the leader is the caucus rather than the leadership review in January. And I have to think that there's people around that table thinking, oh my God, like, how am I going to go knock on a door and have a conversation with a voter about how this guy thinks Justin Trudeau should be in jail because he went to the Aga Khan's house? Like, this is not where they want to be. And the kind of distraction that this causes for the party, right? At a time where there's a budget, where truthfully, of all the unforced errors, when Carney's got nothing in his hands after, meetings with Trump, and now this Doug Ford thing, and now negotiations are blown up altogether. But we're talking about that, obviously, but there's still a lot of people who are like, what is Pierre Poilievre really up to? And so it makes it hard for the party.
But even in the springtime election, and we heard from Conservatives after the fact when the results were all in, that said that Conservative candidates were hearing that at the door back then. Yep. That, pretty good idea. We kind of like your platform, but your leader sucks. That's all there is to it. And how do you rebut that? I mean, you're stuck with the guy, and you're absolutely right. I mean, if the leadership review, he'll win. First of all, because to save face, the public, the party's always going to do that. Second of all, there's no challenger. There's nobody in the wings. If they say, if we dump this guy, like the NDP did after Tom Mulcair in 2015, they went out there for a policy convention in Edmonton, and Mulcair came back with no job. And they didn't have a leader, and it took them over a year. How'd that work out for them? So I guess the Conservatives don't want to make that same mistake. But I don't see anybody in the wings to say, okay, yeah, we want to dump him. And who else? I mean, now they start talking, well, maybe Andrew Scheer should get another look. He's already had his ride on the horse.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, exactly. And there's
you don't go
not
back.
Really, exactly. Not too many other options available here to them right now. So, a lot of them are going to hold their nose and say, yeah, let's keep Poilievre at this stage. But you brought up, I think, one point that just about every politician thinks of, but never wants to talk about publicly. Can we win with that guy? Not is this a great policy? Not is this a great platform? Can we win? And I get the sense an awful lot of Conservatives right now are saying, I don't think so, or we're not sure. And that's not the sort of attitude you want to have going into an election if that's where we're headed.
I think that's right. I think that an election is a crazy idea and a bad idea for all kinds of reasons right now. But there is a universe where the Liberals want to force this because Pierre Poilievre is still the leader. And he's seen as as a liability by enough people, and there's enough of a trust issue. If he shoots himself in the foot with these RCMP comments, this is perhaps a moment for the Liberals to capitalize on that and run an election when he's still there. Whereas you can imagine a scenario 8 months from now where CUSMA negotiations are completely flattened and we don't know what the hell is coming next, and nobody likes the budget, and Mark Carney's shine is off him altogether, and maybe Pierre Poilievre looks different in that light, or maybe, the party takes the time to make a change. And I don't know who's out there who wants to do it. For a while, it looked like Jason Kenney was kind of, testing the waters to see what kind of reaction he was going to get. So I don't know, but it just seems like from the Conservatives' perspective, the Liberals have a clearer path to potentially a better result in an election. Although even that, I think they would really run the risk of testing the extent to which people were willing to lend Mark Carney their votes in the last election. And in Quebec in particular, I think that could be a bit of a question mark, because I think a lot of people got behind him thinking this is the guy to help sort this Trump mess. But if given another go at it a year later, I don't know that the Bloc Québécois wouldn't benefit from that.
The other element, and a number of your coworkers and others observing up on the Hill have talked about, is Carney needs a win. And it's not going to be a trade deal with the U.S., although we're told now that before the Ford ad came out a couple of weeks ago, I guess, they said they were pretty close, at least on some of the stuff, steel, aluminum especially, and energy, which turns out to be maybe discussions about a pipeline. So there seemed to be some semblance of a deal. I don't know how close they really were, but that was the story that was out there on the Hill at the time.
Bill Kelly Podcast brought to you by Wizen's Law, personal injury lawyers. Listen, you didn't choose to get injured, but you can choose the right lawyer. Wizen's Law, 905-522-1102 or wizenslaw.com.